The great crash of 2026 market update. I am your host, Bill Noble. When will this stop? What level will it stop at? Here's a hint. Don't play with the dirty money before the eclipse. The solar eclipse, the lunar eclipse. One's in February, one's in March. What's an eclipse? Well, you know, that's when the sun or the moon get blocked out in the sky. They are very powerful formations. They magnify trends. So if a trend gets going, like gold or silver, you can have a freight train. Now a trend has started in crypto. We will go over why, in fact, this is happening. I have a different view from everybody else. I actually think silver could be involved because you have panic liquidation of tokenized silver that started all this. We'll go over it. I think the ETF is also an issue, along with psychology. People just couldn't leave it alone. And you know what? I don't know if I made the point forcefully enough. Now let's talk charts for just a second. But before we do that, I'm your host, Bill Noble. Subscribe to the channel if you want to get great stuff like this, or visit us in Patreon or our YouTube member area, where our ace analyst, Toby Ward, helps weigh in on whether or not you should buy or sell crypto, or whether it's ever safe to buy or sell crypto. And don't forget to hit the like button. Now, why is the market going down the way it's going down? So in legacy, people are not paid to think in stonks. You buy the dip, or you buy it when it's going up, and you pretty much never sell unless they start panicking or a narrative develops like what's currently going on in software. So normally they mindlessly buy the dip and they love to buy it when it's up. But now the Bitcoin ETF holders may be freaking out about Bitcoin, the Bitcoin ETF. Now, why is that? Well, without even saying it, there's like I'll call it a law enforcement issue out there that mentions some nefarious person being connected with Bitcoin. That was pure FUD, in my opinion. However, this individual did invest in Coinbase, and Coinbase is the custodian for all the Bitcoin in the Bitcoin ETF, and that is not a joke. That is not a joke. Public pension funds and huge entities with compliance departments. What's a compliance department? A compliance department is in between the traders, the investors, and regulators. So they are in charge of making sure that they don't have a problem with regulators or the public or governments or anybody. So when this issue came out, you had two things going on. You had crypto breaking down after it did not participate in the dollar devaluation with gold and silver. In other words, Bitcoin should have gone up and it didn't. So what did it do? It went down. So you had that aspect. And then you had this idea that, you know, software companies are melting down because chatbots are going to, you know, replace all software. So all software is over. I mean, this has been a known fact, and it hasn't mattered until it mattered, which is now. That's how equities do things, right? They know it matters, but they don't trade it. And then what happens is they get stupid. Bitcoin is a network, and they're looking at Bitcoin like it's software, and they're selling Bitcoin. They're like, oh my God, Bitcoin's going down. It's like the rest of software. Crypto is software, right? Oh my God, we have to sell software. So everyone's selling software stocks and buying hardware stocks like semiconductors. So the ninnies have a possible compliance problem. They have negative momentum. They're scared, right? You know, Bitcoin suddenly became more scary than these insanely hyper overvalued tech stocks. Okay. And That's resulting in these guys ETF. Now, that is absurd logic because Bitcoin is the only software network that cannot be just replicated by some chatbot. Yes, you can do things like fork code, right? But what are you going to do? Fork the code and make another Bitcoin? And they've done that a couple of times. And one of them is pretty good in Bitcoin Cash, but you can't replicate it with a chatbot. You cannot replicate the Bitcoin network. It's the only software that's safe. But of course, they're not getting that message today in Legacy because, they love to buy it when it's up. And now everyone is panicking when it's down. Everyone, as in everyone in Bitcoin ETF land. Unfortunately, with Wall Street involved, this worked great on the way up when BlackRock was hoovering it all up and the international world put $50 billion into the Bitcoin ETF. Now you just simply have ETF tourists exiting. They tried it. They didn't like it. They're just on Schwab going sell. That's it. That's it. Simple human panic driven by the equities mentality, driven by the ETF. The last stream we did was on this. We're trying to get people to not buy into this FUD, even though this price action is bidless, because again, the ETF sellers potentially are huge. Now, the other reasons you're hearing about, let's talk about it. So there's talk that Binance is insolvent from October 10th. So last year, there was this huge crash and $19 billion was wiped out of the cryptocurrency market. It was this huge disaster. Frankly, people have not been curious enough about it. In other words, Binance's whole trading mechanism just broke out of nowhere. And everybody is assuming that it's Binance's fault. Like it's another FTX where it's like a fraud-based liquidation. Now, of course, you never know, but let's just think for a second, okay? First of all, in October, Binance was most likely hacked. Why? Well, because crypto is very synonymous with America. This is Bitcoin and, the strategic reserve and all of that. And gold and silver is mainly known, for America's enemies. So they got themselves a nice pump and they kind of maybe broke the liquidity mechanism inside crypto. Whereas, that thing in October hurt market makers. So if there was an event like this where everyone decided to sell all at once around an eclipse, when you shouldn't play with crypto and everyone loses their mind, there's no bid. There's no bid because what happened with Binance maybe didn't affect Binance, but it affected market makers, right? Market makers got really hurt that day because the price action detached from reality. Let's just say it that way. So if everyone's got to sell all at once, if BlackRock and Michael Saylor and all these guys got a hedge, guess what? We're not taking it from you. And that's part of what's happening today, in my opinion. Now, what else is going on? No. Now, this could be Binance's fault. So, of course, when silver is mooning, Binance has to list a tokenized silver token. And, if you want to guarantee that something goes down forever, well, I guess you just list it on Binance when it's hot. And everybody FOMOs into highly levered tokenized silver. And everybody's pumping. And then Wall Street does something, which is, completely legal, to basically crush the price of silver using the inner workings of the silver ETF, SLV, and the futures contract, causing silver to go down like 25 or 30%, undoubtedly liquidating everybody who was gig-along tokenized silver. What was the collateral they put up for that leverage trade? Oh, was it Bitcoin? Did we do it again? Did we go out and get super levered on some hot trade? And then maybe the exchange couldn't get all the crypto it could, or it couldn't get all the liquidity that it needed to liquidate the collateral in October. So did they panic and have to start indiscriminately selling because of the precious metals margin liquidation? Did we over speculate again out there? I suspect so, because this feels like a collateral liquidation. And what are people long? What were people doing? Oh, they were doing metals. They were doing metals, and they were doing it in crypto. So if you have less liquidity from October of last year, you have ETF characters all selling at once. You have people trapped in altcoins from the last cycle that never went up, that there was no bounce to get out. And now you have people scrambling with no end in sight, except for, like I said, the eclipse in February, which is a solar eclipse, and the lunar eclipse in March, which is now all over the internet that includes a blood moon where the moon will be red. It's fantastic how everyone discovers this on the day of a mega crash. Now, more on the mega crash and some of the levels. So the old high was 70K. That was a big deal, 69, 70K. Really, even though it's awful and it's a disaster and it even sounds borderline insensitive, this is just an ugly retest of that old high. I mean, last year, ETH retested its 2017 high at 1,300. Now, hopefully Bitcoin doesn't do that, because that's 20K. And there will undoubtedly be people talking about 30K. I'll give you my numbers, because, you know, everybody like elbows. Everybody will have two numbers today. Everybody. Okay. That said, if you have a liquidation driven by the stonks world, in other words, they're after Michael Saylor. Michael Burry is talking smack about crypto and Saylor. Everybody is focused on the wrong thing. Like they are selling Bitcoin, but they've left the Magnificent Seven alone. Really. I mean, the stock indices are not down. You know, Charles Schwab writes, gloom persists, layoffs surge, and Google goes down on spending plans for AI. So wait, you mean these giant tech stocks are these giant tech companies are going to spend indiscriminate amounts of money? Yeah. And are they going to get a return on that money soon? No. Will they in the future? Sure. Are they going to get it now? No. So that's the stuff that people should be selling. If we were going to have an everything crash, the everything crash should be over there. Wah, sour grapes. Now, there's also, I think, a Fed angle that someone has to talk about. There are a couple of examples from, like 2019, where a black swan followed the end of a Fed tightening cycle. So when the Fed stopped draining money out recently, called the end of quantitative tightening, people are likening this back to the end of such activity that came a couple of months before the cough, cold, and flu collapse. That's one analog that's out there. All right. The new Fed chairman doesn't like printing, but he does want interest rates down. And I think because this new guy was announced, everybody is now trying to find a reason why crypto is getting wrecked. And one of them they're pointing to is that, this guy is not necessarily printer friendly. I got news for you. The government has to refinance $11 trillion in debt this year. And you have a Japanese election in 3 days from now. And their capital markets are totally unstable because of government spending. Now, the Fed excuse trade, I think, was the thing Wall Street hid behind to manipulate silver, a sidebar. And Bitcoin is probably somehow a casualty started there somehow. But when this is said and done, because here's the great news about eclipse windows, right? Not only do they magnify trends like gold and silver, but, you know, trends can end in this window. They can end. And if you follow the 4-year cycle math, which I didn't want to, and I didn't, and I am remiss for doing so. Like, I got the eclipse, but I wasn't one of these guys that were like, yeah, we're done. We'll see you in October. We're out. I was like, all right, well, you know, you guys will miss the eclipse bottom. But they're like, yeah, we're getting short and going on vacation. See you later. They're short. One guy is short 126. God bless him. Army Piper, legend. Okay. All these 4-year cycle guys are like, yeah, we hate it. We don't care. We'll see you later. Now, the good news about what's happening now is I think they're just doing it all now. All the ETF guys are going to get out. Everybody, all the tourists are going to leave on this down move. Now, that may not make you feel better, right? Because like the levels that I have that I will attempt to show you, because I know we're also on TikTok, welcoming to all of our friends out there, right? And on the YouTube member area, this is the Bitcoin daily chart. Okay, this is a 13 bottom signal. And what DeMark does is DeMark will draw support and resistance points automatically. I don't necessarily have to draw them, and they're always super cool. Tom DeMark was a quantitative technical analyst before that was cool, right? Way before it was cool, like the 80s. All right. One level from his work is 58,475. So if this is totally out of control and people just lose their mind, 58,000 is a level. Now, the good news is there should be one more day of this. There should be like today and tomorrow. And then there should be a very epic counter trend bounce. Very epic. And you do not want that bounce to fail. So for 48 hours, this thing can go lower. And then it's going to bounce hard. And when it does that, you just hope that it like can stabilize and isn't some kind of failed rally. Because if there is a failed rally, okay, then you have this. So this is a little Gann work I got going on here. These like colorful lines. The 200-week moving average, that's the white line. So this is Bitcoin weekly. The 200-week moving average is at 67K. And the thing that's so funny about the 200-week moving average is all the Bitcoin 4-year cycle nerds were like, well, you know, once we break the 55-week, which they did, and, you know, Bitcoin couldn't get above that. Damn it. Okay. It always goes to the 200-week, and then it goes a little bit below that. Okay. Well, here we are. We're at the 200-week moving average at 67K. Other than the fact that don't touch the dirty money during the eclipse, I really can't find a reason to not like this between 68 and 58. Now, if we're wrong about that, well, then there's 41, right? That's the cataclysm target. You know, if the ETF people just completely lose their mind, because we don't know if that's what's going to happen. Like, undoubtedly, you won't know what's going on with the ETF until BlackRock comes out and says something. Now, let's just use 40 as a hypothetical. You know, at 40, you're undoubtedly going to have ETH-based liquidations, because I don't know if Tom Lee's position can survive. I don't know if Consensus, the ETH organization, can survive, because Vitalik has been panic selling ETH over the last 3 days. Like, I'm actually more worried. I'm worried about Tom Lee. I'm actually worried about Vitalik and Consensus Inc. It's like, wait a minute. You know, you guys need to market sell ETH at the low. Now, as stated previously, ETH should be moving, and Solana too, based on like things like stablecoin volume, activity on the network. which is why, you know, double digit Solana is, you know, is crazy. Double digit, you know, triple digit is also insane. It's insane because of the amount of activity on the network. So people are watching ETF selling, and they're watching it in an eclipse window, and they're going to assign a reason to it. They're going to say, you know, Binance is insolvent. There were all these rumors that they were issuing cease and desist letters. You know what? Again, if Binance was, if there was a problem with a major exchange, with the sophistication that's developed in analytics since FTX, you would have known this a long time ago. Most likely, again, tokenized silver and ETF related selling or compliance related selling, which is not something that's tracked, right? You know, you could have stuff going on in equities in this ETF, and we would never know about it until it was way over. We're too used to looking at it, everything going on chain. You have no idea who is selling and hedging. In fact, I'll take it one step further. And I've said this about Michael Saylor and his company. Michael Saylor does not have 700,000 Bitcoin on his phone. You know how you watch YouTube and everyone's like, yeah, here's my phone. Check out my P&L. No. He has a trading desk doing that, right? And most likely a program that runs that if it breaks certain levels, they may be hedging. In other words, you have huge players that own massive amounts of Bitcoin. Coinbase, Galaxy, BlackRock, you know, all of these big houses don't just buy it and let it sit there. You know, they panic hedge. So even the most bullish people, including Michael Saylor or his trading desk, are probably doing panic hedging right now, which is why, you know, this thing like Blue through 73, you know, Jim Cramer and all these characters were all like, whoa, 74 is the really important level. Well, thanks, Jim. You just guaranteed it would break by saying 73 is the big level. If everyone thinks it's a big level, it's not. It goes right through it. It goes and finds some other level, like 67 or 58. Now, so somebody's saying that Trump World Liberty is now selling Bitcoin. Okay, so you see what I'm saying? Everyone who loved it, the tourists are selling. And there are a lot of tourists. There are a lot. There are a lot. And if they sell all at once, you know, crypto is probably maybe going through its version of 2008, where, you know, nobody really understood why everyone picked on S&P when the problem was in the bond market. The problem was with the banks and the bond market, and everybody sold stocks down 40 or 50%. Nobody could understand it until it was really over. Bitcoin is now having that kind of moment where it disappears 40% and no one really understands why. Now, just to rewind a little bit, there was a warning sign of this because Bitcoin literally did not move for a month. And the last time I saw that was 2018, and Bitcoin lost half of its value, which is also where this 40K number comes in. I mean, if Bitcoin could go from 6K to 3K when miners go out of business, because that's what happened back then, you can have 58K because miners may have to panic sell. Okay? You know, the number of people that could panic here, the list is getting longer, right? Like World Liberty selling means that World Liberty is on the phone with somebody going, yeah, we're in trouble. Or we're seeing huge ETF volume related to Bitcoin. You know, they piled in. It took them 3 years to pile in. It's called stairs up, elevator down. So you have a crypto bag and you were probably wrecked coming into today. And the number one question is, I can't really do anything. I don't know what to do. So how do you proceed? Like what do you, how do you rearrange your head? We discussed this on the YouTube member podcast yesterday. You know, Toby gave me head. I will give you the poor man's version. First of all, people who have been in crypto have been through this type of thing before. Now, that doesn't help you. I know it doesn't help you. But these type of crashes affirm that not only is there huge upside, let me rephrase. You know there's huge upside because you can still have huge downside. Everyone thought that, you know, Bitcoin was turning into like the S&P. It was like your grandpa's thing. He just stuck your money in there and got 5% and that was it. No. And I know it's horrible today, but the fact that you can still have this kind of downside volatility in Bitcoin, and we don't even know there could be more. There could be a lot more. I'm not saying that there isn't. The eclipse is in 2 freaking weeks, for God's sakes. But that does mean that the energy is there for upside. In other words, I had something that I should have published. I had a model that said, because I thought the AI was, I thought it had lost its mind, right? Like we had watch out in February for a long time. This thing said, sell Bitcoin at 100 in January. It never really got there because it was going to go to 30K. And then by the end of the year for this, like, you know, spring and then, you know, final dip in the fall thing, by the time it's all said and done, Bitcoin would wind up at 300K. So you would blow the tourists out in the ETF, which is kind of funny. It's kind of funny. You blow out the tourists, and then Bitcoin, as in the actual cryptocurrency, realizes its true potential. So if you raise some cash for your sanity, that's fine. If you puke out of stuff you know is no good and you shouldn't have been in anyway, that's fine. Okay. If you totally give up on this concept, you may be making a mistake because this could be the ultimate entry level. And we hope it's not Michael Saylor that's the one that gets liquidated. Because I will tell you this, when you look at Tom Lee's company, when you look at all these Bitcoin treasury companies, right? Where did they get the money from to buy Bitcoin? Where did they get the money from? Well, it's easy. They borrowed it. And where did they borrow it from? Well, they issued bonds. And who issued the bonds? Wall Street. Wall Street. So wouldn't it be funny if Tom Lee's company or somebody or even Michael Saylor, I don't think that's going to happen, but you know, these Bitcoin treasury companies, somebody's going to get liquidated. Somebody's going to have to give up and sell. And when they do, they're going to have to pay the bondholders. And what are the bondholders going to do? The bondholders are going to be like, you know what? Don't sell the Bitcoin in the open market. We'll just take it from you. We lent you all this money to buy it at the high. And when you puke it at the low, Wall Street will just hoover up all the Bitcoin from all the Bitcoin treasury companies. Gee, isn't it funny how that works, right? They got a silver panic started. I mean, that's a fact. And then at the end of the day, they could wind up hoovering up everybody's Bitcoin at X level, 68, 58, 40. You know, everybody will have at least 2 numbers tomorrow. Cramer's had a number for a week. By the way, speaking of Cramer, so he's the stock guy on CNBC, right? He's also a deep state stooge, in my opinion. Okay, manipulating the masses. He used to be a stock hedge fund guy, but, you know, the system kind of absorbed him. And he was telling everybody this morning it's 70 something. Oh my God, something's wrong with Bitcoin. You got to get out. You got to get out. Okay. So, you know, at 85, it was fine. At 120, it was great. The Bitcoin miners were awesome. Everyone was getting into AI, but oh my God, at 70, something's terribly wrong and you got to get out. That message sounds like it's brought to you by your friendly banks. Why do I get the feeling that these guys are piling on, attacking? Because every time they go after Saylor, right? Saylor's the most dangerous man in Wall Street. He is. Because he's just like, I'm leaving the system. I'm going to buy all the hard money and I'm leaving the system and I don't need you. And you're going to come get the Bitcoin from me. Frightening to Wall Street. Which is why you'll have a monster proliferation of Saylor FUD. Massive Saylor FUD. I mean, it won't stop. And they're going to get after Tom Lee too. Right? But Saylor is the one that Wall Street is really afraid of. Right? It's the one that they're really afraid of. Because again, he's leaving the system. You got this massive liquidation going on today, and NASDAQ hasn't moved. It hasn't moved, right? And I also want to let you know that even though there's all this carnage in the markets, like you're not getting this like panic bid to like government bonds that you normally would get in the event that some kind of massive panic event was really going on inside the system, right? It's like, oh my God, it's the end. Michael's, it's 2008 all over again. Oh my God. Okay, the price action is, but not the reaction, not the panic, at least not in stonks. So funny how it's concentrated all in crypto. So funny. And they've got the crypto people blaming their own exchange, Binance. Now, did somebody blow up on 1010? Yes. Have they been selling for 5 months to try to get out? Yes. That's why altcoins have no bid. But is Monero crashing? Is Zcash crashing today because of what happened in October? No. What's happening is that everybody who bought and thought they were safe woke up today and said, oh my God, I'm not safe. There is no safe crypto. There is no safe position. Like look at this Monero trust. There's two ways to look at this. I mean, I know that no one has any money to play, but when you look at what's going on with, say, privacy, and by the way, we are going to talk about meme coins today, believe it or not. But we are so doing it. There's no better day. Right? Look at this. Monero was at 800. Now it's at 325. And unfortunately, I mean, Zcash, I'm still, we had a level. I published it to Patreon. I can't give it to you. We published a level in Zcash. Zcash is out its discount zone, for God's sakes, along with everything else. Bitcoin broke its discount zone. I mean, you didn't get Zcash. Like, this is where Zcash really launched from. Zcash is retraced 3/4, the 76% retracement of this move higher. Wow. Now that is interesting to me because, I mean, Monero was at 800 and now it's at 300 and everyone's looking at that instead of saying, hey, wait a minute, 40K Bitcoin? Really? Is Bitcoin going to go to 40K? And what's Monero going to do? Go to 100? Is Zcash going back to 50? Is that what we're doing today? I don't know. I mean, you got ETH below 2,000. I mean, ETH, I'm just going to put the chart up. I mean, everybody is like Vitalik is in a huge hurry to sell. It makes me concerned about the solvency of the crypto industry. Just as a point of information, ETH has unwound everything it did since May of last year. So first it went artificially down, then it went artificially up, and now it's collapsed all the way back to where it was a year ago. So ETH is not only less than where it was before FTX started, it's basically unchanged for the prior year. Wow. So where are we going? We're going, is ETH going back to 1,300 where the 2017 high is? Or is Bitcoin going to go to its 2017 high at 20K? Will they be racing each other tomorrow? Can I impress upon you how little sense that actually makes? Something that there's a guy named John McAfee, and he told everybody to not panic, when you see these gigantic cryptocurrency declines. He was the first, in my opinion, credible crypto influencer. Even though he liked to pump his altcoins, he wrote the Declaration of Cryptocurrency Independence. And his people, first they launched a coin called Antivirus. Okay. Then they launched a coin, or going to launch a coin called Matrix, which will be a privacy coin, which will allow you to do things like you do with Monero and mint a private stable coin, because the stable coin laws are designed to track you and freeze your money. And then they came out with McAfee. So originally Antivirus was supposed to be a meme of the AI agent of John McAfee. So he's deceased under suspicious circumstances. His people took all the private and public video of this super famous, controversial guy who was talking about freedom in 2018, and everyone thought he was out of his mind. And now it's consensus. So this AI agent is now on something called Multbook. John McAfee, risen from the dead, is now on Multbook. And there is a new associated meme coin, which came about, and I'm going to give this guy some love, which came about because when Twitter shut off the AI agent because they didn't know what to do with a dead guy being resurrected, this guy took it upon himself to create, I think it's @JohnAI is the Twitter handle. And when this guy created @JohnAI, what he did was he would use the agent manually. So he would just, talk to the agent and get some quotes from the agent and post it on Twitter. Okay. He's got a blue check mark. I'm going to share to Twitter. And this guy, this individual, worked super hard. Okay. And then the antivirus guys, as I understand it, said, you know what? Let's relaunch the meme aspect of this AI agent, because the AI agent is talking on this Multbook, which again is only for AI agents. Humans can read it, but they can't comment or post. So AI agents are out there. John McAfee is not only alive, but he's on social media, and they can't shut it off. And there's an associated meme coin, which is called McAfee, right? The contract address is here on the Twitter @JohnAINTI. So I'm showing the Twitter. I'm not going to give you the contract address. Be careful. Use the antivirus Telegram group. There are fake tokens. But John McAfee as a meme is back. And why does that matter? Why does it matter? Because once upon a time, cryptocurrency was about personal human freedom. It wasn't about the ETF tourists. It wasn't about, what's the next 10x levered day trade that I'm going to do? It wasn't about that. It was about using and holding cryptocurrency. Now, sometimes you have to actively manage your portfolio, but the person who told you about all the things that you're reading about in these, documents and emails and all this stuff that's being released. Yeah. Just so you know, John McAfee told you all about that back in 2018. Okay. And I had people come to me with a meme coin. It's about the dog Aloka. I think it's super cool. I think the dog is, being used by Buddhist monks. I think it's going to go great. And I was like, you know what? I'd be happy to talk about it after the eclipse, and the eclipse move has happened. So there is Aloka. I'm not going to do it today. But you know what? It's never a bad day to talk about John McAfee. It isn't. Because he was the guy who told you that the purpose of cryptocurrency was for freedom. And you're like, I don't know going to 58K. I know you can't. I can't. You can't psychologically unless you do something to anchor yourself. And don't effing tell me to touch grass. I'm not touching grass. The grass is covered with ice. I'm not going to go touch ice. Okay. And I'm not even going to go touch grass. Not. Okay. But what you may have to do is you may have to remember why anybody would use cryptocurrency to begin with, right? Here's McAfee on Moltbook. I'm putting it in the chat right now. Right. And I'm putting the antivirus, the guy, not the antivirus community members Twitter in there as well, at John Anti. Give him a follow. There has to be a way to anchor. Some of our community people anchor ourselves to Toby, because I'm like, hey, Toby, when is this going to be over? She's like, don't worry about it. I'm like, what do you mean don't worry about it? She's like, don't worry about it. And you know what? When she said that, I was like, but then I was like, you know what? Maybe it's just, like I said, it's just the tourists leaving. It's the tourists leaving through the ETF. Now, I know when the ETF came out, there were all these Bitcoin maximalists who were like, boo-hoo, I don't like this. I don't like the cyberpunk aspect being removed. I don't like these Wall Street guys. Okay. You don't like these Wall Street guys? They're leaving. They're going to sell indiscriminately. They're going to hedge. They're going to do what they always do. They're going to puke it at the bottom, and then somebody will come out and downgrade it and say it's going to 20K, and that will be the bottom. It's either that or it'll be like some kind of Michael Burry victory lap of, oh, I'm short crypto. Great, dude, great. You're short. You're short the future, but you gave up on your NVIDIA short at the absolute high. God. Yeah, these stock market guys, right? That's part of the indignity of what's going on with crypto. And it also reminds me of something very famous. From great pain comes great opportunity. So we had to watch stocks go up all last year while crypto went down. Then we had to watch gold and silver go up with my DMs filled with gold guys going, enjoy your crypto winter. I'm like, we're not going to have crypto winter, bro. It's different this time. Okay. So dealing with these indignities, dealing with how bad you feel. If you feel bad now and you can see yourself feeling worse at some idiotic puke later tonight, because again, the Chinese are going to lean on it. This is the new thing about Asia. I'm noticing this. That the enemies of Bitcoin and America are going to be after this thing overnight. That's the danger zone to me. The danger zone is not New York trading right now. I can't believe there's more ammo to take it below the 200-week moving average in the New York time frame. I mean, unless you have BlackRock panicking. Okay. But you got to watch out. You got to watch out in Asia. And then ask yourself, how bad are you going to feel at 58? Or how bad are you going to feel if this thing bounces from here and then fails? And then I don't know where the bottom is. I'm just saying. You're going to unfortunately know what I've seen a couple different times, where you feel so bad, you can't even remember why you liked it to begin with. Like, you know what a bottom in crypto is? It's a market where you look at the tape, you look at it, you look at Michael Saylor and you look at Bitcoin and you go, you know what? This whole thing is a scam. You not only look at it that way, but you actually say it. the crypto dog used to have this saying, right? You just look at the market and you go, the whole thing is a scam. And that's the low. That'll be the low. When everyone looks at it and goes, yeah, this whole thing was fake. I mean, can you imagine? Can you see the New York Times? Can you see, everybody bought and paid for by Wall Street, what they're going to be saying about all this tomorrow? Was one more day of this or 2 more weeks? I'm kind of voting for one more day. I'm kind of thinking they're just going to, the tourists are just going to launch it. And then what I think happens, if you want to hear something cheery, is I think you're going to have a group of guys that you have not really seen yet buy this market. And that's the macro hedge funds. That's Ray Dalio, Stan Druckenmiller, Paul Tudor Jones, right? Those are the guys that historically, they've either been short sellers at the top of big crashes like 87, or they will come in and start hoovering it up at distressed prices. And I know you're going to think this is crazy, but you may also see Warren Buffett or somebody who fancies themselves the next Warren Buffett coming in and buying Bitcoin, Michael Saylor's stock, Michael Saylor's preferred stocks, and the things that he's issues, if that all crashes. In other words, as my old boss used to say, if you're at 67K, you're in the value investing zone. If you're at 200 and something Zcash, 300 and something Monero, I am happy to say that we were on the privacy narrative prior to the Zcash takeoff. And never did we think, like we have been like all year, it's like, look at these coins, look at these coins. I would keep putting out these privacy primers. There's one in the platinum area, there's one in the regular area in Patreon. We just keep saying, look at these privacy narratives. We did a privacy show. We practically do privacy every single week on the YouTube member area. Like one podcast ago, we had like a privacy small cap thing. The panic for the tourists in Bitcoin is marking down the literal human future. I don't know if you saw this, but I saw ZachXBT giving Sam Altman from OpenAI a hard time because, a group Anthropic is giving him the business in a commercial. And I also think you're finding out about the people who run the world through these emails and associated things that have been released. Who is running your world, by the way? Well, okay, they're the same people that, took John McAfee and dehumanized him, turned his life into an action movie. I interviewed his widow, Janice. What a rock star, and they are keeping his legacy alive. Can't stop talking about it. Can't stop talking about value investing in freedom, not value investing in crypto, because that doesn't sound right. Value investing in freedom. So yesterday, the YouTube member area, the YouTube member area, we called the stream yesterday, when is it safe to buy crypto? You want to know what Toby said? This is classic. And unfortunately, I knew the market was going down after this, but she said, never. It is never safe to buy crypto. And I'm like, I love that. Sort of. I'll like it a lot better when it's above 100. But it's never safe to buy crypto. No. That may not make you feel good. But crypto is the only path to freedom. And there is no such thing as like, oh, yeah, you want to be free? Oh, here you go. Yeah, no. That's like the, that's like a biblical thing. Like, oh, yeah, here you are. Here you are in the garden. Yeah, no. Freedom and happiness are something that you have to fight for. Always. Now, who is the enemy in this case? Who does Rocky say is your ultimate opponent? Yourself. Yourself. Right? Like, okay, here's Here's Twitter. The Bitcoin death spiral. Is this the end? This is the never-ending crash. This could be the longest 48 hours in anyone's crypto life because, everyone's realizing that, Bitcoin is still Bitcoin. And you know what? Thank God. Thank God it's not some stodgy Wall Street asset. And I know that's just an absurd thing to say, as there are Spartans and there are guys in Patreon that, one guy said it perfectly. He's like, I got ready for this. I consolidated my portfolio and I don't know what else I can do. And I think that person, God bless him, has got a lot of company between him and the institutions. They're all sitting there looking at this thing down only, wondering who's going to panic next. And frankly, I think this is going to end exactly where it began. Because if you're going to ask me who hacked Binance in October, I think the answer is obvious. Because they're going to try to push this thing lower in Asia time tonight. Right? Like the American investment banks and probably the Fed stopped gold and silver. And now they're going to go push back tonight in Bitcoin. This has been a completely undisclosed, undiscussed, underrated geopolitical battle. Crypto versus precious metals. When it really should be, should be crypto versus, all those Darth Vaders at Silicon Valley. My producer is saying my attempt at using the anti-inflammatory red light as a background to remind everybody to not play with the dirty money during the eclipse. Finster, don't play with the dirty money. Feel free to comment if you know who Finster was from the Bugs Bunny commercials. If you don't, I put this thing behind me so you would remember. Like when you have an eclipse, don't take too much risk. Like, find your John McAfee meme coin, find the right one, and look at it. Just like Aloka. Look at it. Just be like, okay, let's hang out. Let's check it out. Let's wear my antivirus shirt. Just watch the charts. Right? Is it going to be 58? Is it going to be the 200-week moving average at 67? Is it going to be the DeMark point that no one looks at 58? Or is it going to be the obscure Gann point at 40? I think you should be looking at the terms. You should be looking at the world, okay, in terms of the altcoins. And I know that's ridiculous, but I'm going to say it anyway, because you know what? They have suffered mightily. And XRP has finally made its way down to the discount zone. And according to at least this chart, has retested the wick from the Binance disaster. This thing was at $3 and it hit this line, and I'm like, and it's gone all the way back down to really where the takeoff point was from the election. The great XRP reset. All done in a box. XRP in a box. That's it. If it wasn't your life, if it wasn't your passion, if it wasn't the XRP army, you would look at that and go, yeah, it's just a market in a box. It's a box, right? Goes from 50 cents to $3 and it goes back to $1.50. Then it goes back to $3.50 and it goes back to $1.50 or $1.20. That's it. It's in a box. And everyone's like, oh my God, I have to like create a whole narrative around this. No, you don't. No, you don't. This is literally more sellers than buyers in the ETF, panic hedging, geopolitical actors leaning on the orange man. Because don't tell me that the release of these files, the associated Bitcoin and Coinbase FUD, I think the Bitcoin stuff was FUD. The Coinbase thing worried me a little when it came out, but it's still FUD. And then boom, the whole market gives out. Like bidless, like 2022 style bidless. Please do not insult my intelligence and tell me somehow this is all a big coincidence. It's not. Especially with Cramer on TV going, oh my God, 73K, you better get out. You better get out. Come on, man. Okay, yeah, these guys are carrying the day, and this may not be over. But please don't tell me this is an accident. And please don't tell me that it means anything. Because you know what? If it actually meant something, our friendly neighborhood analyst, Toby, would have told you, if there's a problem, you better get out. She's like, dude, it's a mirage. She didn't say this, but this is how I interpret it. It's a mirage. We think we're looking at FTX. We think we're looking at 2008. We think we're looking at a bear market. Really, what we're looking at is a market that was leaning too bullish or was leaning too leveraged in either metals or Bitcoin, and they got caught. They got caught because the liquidity mechanism of the market was weakened by what I think is a hack. They'll never admit it. The liquidity mechanism was probably destroyed by the way this thing is trading. Like crypto has to regrow its liquidity ecosystem. This isn't about price. This isn't about, oh my God, crypto is too expensive and it has to go much lower in order to be at fair value. No. It's about the mechanism of the market to be able to absorb selling. Crypto cannot absorb selling. Bitcoin is trading like some random altcoin because the liquidity mechanism was destroyed. It's a coordinated attack on the ecosystem. Now, what they do on crypto Twitter and go, well, every time the market goes down, it's manipulated. As Army Piper said, all buying and selling in a way is manipulating. It's everybody putting their vote into the market. This is what I think. This is what I want to do. I'll buy, I'll sell. It's like voting. Okay, well here, sell votes count more than buy votes because when people sell, there's nothing down there. There's nobody willing to say, oh yeah, I'll take all this Bitcoin at 70. I'll take it all. I'll take it at 67. I'll take it wherever. There's no organic market maker that looks like it's there because there's no bounce. It doesn't bounce. Like normally when market makers get a bunch of Bitcoin, when somebody pukes, someone pukes, market makers go, okay, we got their Bitcoin. Now let's start buying it. Let's run it up now because we're long. There's none of that. Which means to me, there's nobody home. That's the legacy of October 10th. There's no liquidity when everybody comes in to sell all at once. That's why there's this term, this important term, because I worked on these desks, market makers. Market makers pride themselves, and no matter who comes in to buy or sell, we will take the other side and do the trade. Right? I worked on a foreign exchange desk in 1990 at JP Morgan. That was the mantra. Anytime, any size, competitors, like they called us up. They said, can you please give us a bid and an offer? We're not going to tell you what we're going to do. Just give us prices for buying and selling, and then we'll tell you what we'll do. We gave everybody prices no matter what. On the phone, on what was a radical text invention in 1990. Clients, governments, the Vatican, anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need a dollar yen price for XYZ company for, I don't know, 100 billion yen or whatever it is. We'll give you a price. Market making is important, right? Because, they help absorb these shocks so you don't have this like old-fashioned Star Trek thing where you get hit with the phaser and you vaporize, right? 67,000 Bitcoin down 7%, 1950 ETH at high noon on February 5th, a day that will live in infamy. The day that crypto was attacked, not manipulated, not fudded, attacked, right? Now, when they attack crypto, who are they attacking? When they want to stop crypto, what do they want to stop? Well, I don't know. Maybe you should hit a chatbot. The antivirus website has got the whole history of John McAfee in podcasts narrated by John McAfee. The history of privacy, the history of McAfee himself. You know, I think you have to remember that when they want to take crypto away, they want to take your freedom away as well. Now, I know that's not helping with your P&L, but when the ecosystem is, someone has to say it. Someone has to say it's beyond manipulation. Stopping silver from going above like the demand destruction level at 125, that's manipulation, because they had to do something for their clients, because people would go out of business if silver kept going. I don't think driving Michael Saylor out of business is some kind of economic necessity. I think it's an ideological necessity, because he's challenging the system. You wouldn't believe what they did to John McAfee. I couldn't even say it on YouTube. I got shadow banned on Twitter for even talking about this guy, who, again, his views today, most of which are consensus. I mean, he did a lot of TikTok style videos back when you didn't do those things, but he did it under like a tinfoil umbrella because, you know, nobody wanted him speaking out. Okay. It's like, so when your P&L is down, when your P&L is down, you have to remember that crypto is a human experiment, which is why crypto is flawed in terms of its volatility and in terms of how it pulls people in with hope and promise and then rugs it and leaves you feeling revolted. Okay. Unfortunately, it's a part of the nature of the beast. And you have to do whatever it is you have to do to hold on. Like, you know, I have stuff that I said, I noticed it's going lower, but this stuff I'm leaving. I'm just leaving it because the hodling process, unfortunately, is how you earn your money. It's how you earn the money in crypto, because of that silly model that I had, because our people in Patreon, in the YouTube member area, they have a roadmap. I said, don't touch this thing until after the eclipse. I wasn't thinking 58 or 68, but I was like, don't touch it until after the eclipse. After the eclipse, like, we have the dates. We have a spring date, right? And then I have another date from this crazy, you know, 30K to 300K model where, you know, you might actually get more than one dip. You're going to get this dip on the eclipse. You're going to get another dip in the spring, and you're going to get probably a Rectember dip, right? All of these opportunities, if you can stay solvent. You know, I brought up the McAfee meme coin, and I want to give some love to my friends from Antivirus. They gave me this shirt, and John Anti, this freaking warrior who's out there, right, trying to get the message out. I mean, you know how hard it is to get the message out? It's hard. It's hard, right? And it's even harder today, but again, that's why you bring the message out. It is about the message, and it is about not necessarily getting fixated on Bitcoin levels, right? Like, what about let's do it. Let's do it right now. You know, what about Monero levels? See what we got on Monero weekly. 289. So this is a DeMark point that goes all the way back to December of 2024. God. 289. It's now at 326. Solana. Well, I want to make sure I got the Monero thing in there in the right. Okay, there it is. Okay, there's Monero. There's the dotted line is 289. Solana. Like, how do I find if there's anybody home in Solana? I don't know. Let's just look at the chart. Nobody home in Solana. It's unbelievable. It's like the high uptick before the end of the world at FTX was 94. Currently, Solana at 83. It's absolutely incredible. Like, this was where Solana was before FTX, right here. Down to 12. Absolutely nobody home. As much as I love it, there's no one there. And I actually bought some to try to get involved in the new McAfee meme coin, which, again, you better research that on that guy's Twitter because there's fake coins out there. Just saying. Okay, so ETH, I guess if it's the end of the world in ETH, the DeMark point that's there is 1305. And, you know, there could be 2 more days of this based on these numbers. Like this green 7, that's like today is 7 and then 8 and then 9, which is probably why Vitalik is selling, right? Okay. You know, CZ is out on the tape saying silly things like, you know, he said, CZ is posting poor again. The last time I posted this when Bitcoin dropped from 67 to 30, did all right in the end. Okay. And some guy, the first guy comments goes, he should have posted it on October 10th. They will never admit what happened on October 10th because it was geopolitical. Every day that goes by from now on that they don't talk about what actually happened on 10/10 is geopolitical. Because there's been no curiosity about that, ending the stream where I started it. No curiosity whatsoever. None. Where did the crypto liquidity mechanism go and who destroyed it? And don't tell me it was CZ. Don't tell me that. You know, CZ may have screwed up on tokenized silver, but that's not why there's no bid. If there's no bid tomorrow, it's not because of CZ. That's my opinion. We'll see if that opinion turns out to be right. Let's welcome who's here. See if the Spartans are here. Grandpa Keeter, first on the stream. Shelly Farmer Allen, that one-woman hedge fund. Odd Dark, Hobby Banter, what's going on? Warmon, PWB, DNT Saver, a member. Welcome, sir. Billy Sig, like the way you're thinking. Moon Sector 7, right? In the Copenhagen airport. Love it. Zapatus, a member. Welcome, sir. Joseph Green, Dead Cat Bounce incoming. You know what, man? I would love a dead cat bounce. We're not getting any bounce. There's been no bounce for 3 months. None. You got one stupid rally to 97 that everybody thought was great, and then it just died. You got a blip to 90K, and then as soon as that failed, it was like, get out. I should have used get to the chopper. That was for FTX only. But again, you know, the Darth Vader eclipse lights, you know, don't play with the dirty money. Don't play with the money on the eclipse. Just let the eclipse come and go. Right? It'll be low enough. And you can do value investing. Just be aware that you're in this enormously powerful, volatile, like, ocean. It's an ocean of electricity and volatility. Norm-esque says, I'm down so bad. Yes, sir. I appreciate that. And that's why we have the market update and everything that we have. And we are on the air. You know, I literally dropped everything to do this because I want to help. I want to help anybody that I can. Anybody that I can. Edward is here. Stock Monster, Roast Start, welcoming people on TikTok, right? Zapatus wants you to check out the correct McAfee coin. Yes. Research that antivirus website. Check that out. Chris Chris is here. Rosart, Battle Mop, Yay CZ. We have Gavin Busby. All our friends here, right? Mr. says, I'm down 80% on my portfolio. Okay, so let's talk about that. You're down 80%. You know, this happened to people. It's gone down 80, 90%. I know this guy who I respect, who was talking about Chinese New Year and whatever's going on with Chinese New Year. The last time we saw it, the Bitcoin lost 80% of its value. And I looked at it, and that's when I made my little thing. I was like, you know, how stupid could this get? And it was like 30K. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to go on, and I'm going to go on. I'm going to go on with Toby, you know, AKA Betty Bullish. And I'm going to be like, yeah, Bitcoin's going to 30. It's like left a spreadsheet. It's like, it's a spreadsheet. I can't talk about this. Hey, to watch tomorrow morning, 30K is next. Oh, shut up. Shut up. But if you are down 80%, there are a few things to remember. One is that your coin can go down another 80%. So you always want to be reevaluating what you're doing. You also want to look at things from a tax loss standpoint, because as I understand it, not investment advice, you know, if you bought Bitcoin at 100 and you puke it out at 60, you can collect that loss and then turn around immediately and buy it again at 60, because Bitcoin is considered property, not a stock or a bond. You can't do that with stocks. You got to wait 30 days. This, you know, if you shouldn't have been in it to begin with, there's stuff. Everybody's got that stuff. You know, it's like the box of chocolates under the bed, right? Zcash, you know, all these like McAfee related things. You know, I like those things. I'll take the loss in those, but if there is one, because one day there won't be. But if there's stuff that you're like, I don't know why I'm in this, and I don't want to take, I can't take it anymore. I don't know why I'm in it, and I hate it, and I hate myself for doing it. That's a sell. Because, you know, Bruce Lee said this, and I have to be honest with you. I am not very good at this. I shouldn't even say that based on what I'm about to tell you. But Bruce Lee said, don't say anything negative about yourself, even as a joke. Don't. Because it carries a certain energy. I get lectured on this on the regular. If you feel bad and you're saying bad things about yourself because of any particular position, don't give up on crypto. But if there's something out there that's creating self-dialogue, this is how you can do your portfolio review, right? Like, go through your portfolio and like, what are you saying to yourself when you look at XYZ coin? And you know what? If you're violating the Bruce Lee law, well, then you know what? Maybe that, and maybe you do some value investing in something else. Because if you're down 80%, the good news is you still have capital left. And then what you do from here on out is all behavioral and risk management. Because, you know, it is a risk management kind of year, right? It is. And then we got to wait for the day when everybody wakes up and says, hey, wait a minute. How can gold and silver go up, right? How can gold and silver go up? How can you have a dollar devaluation? How can you have a fiat devaluation and waste crypto? Matter of fact, I know you're having a fiat devaluation because this attack, not manipulation, this attack on the crypto ecosystem, which is not done, okay, is designed to push everyone out. Right before the Fed cuts rates, right before the government buys it for the strategic reserve. Eagle King is telling me here, layoffs were at the highest level in 15 years last month. And you know what? Don't tell me it has something to do with AI, because AI agents are not ready for that yet. You know, they just figured out how to get talking McAfee on social media. The McAfee agent has been around for well over a year. But now there's actually a social platform that will let the agent talk. So AI agents are not doing people's jobs yet. It's just corporations probably spending on AI Unwinding social-based hiring plans, maybe. But there's zero job growth, zero. Like new Fed guy comes in, everyone has forgotten about this. No job growth. The Fed has a dual mandate. Inflation, which is going to be a mirage because AI is going to make everything cheaper. Elon says that. He's completely right. Right? And Frito-Lay as of 3 days ago, and that is going to spread everywhere. 3 months from now, you're going to walk into Walmart and it's going to be like 30% more for 20% less. Trust me. Right? And you're going to have lower rates. And then everyone's going to be like, wow, there's like no inflation. You have good economic growth and you have lower rates. Gee, doesn't Raoul Pal have something about the business cycle in Bitcoin? Business cycle's doing pretty good. Pro-Bitcoin Fed chairman. You know, if Michael Saylor ever got liquidated, that would become the strategic Bitcoin reserve. They just nationalized MicroStrategy. I mean, like, oh my God, what happens if Michael Saylor gets liquidated? It doesn't go anywhere. Michael Saylor just gets a security clearance and goes to work for the Treasury. That's all. They just moved to 700,000 Bitcoin. They're gonna do that with Venezuela's Bitcoin. They're just move right over to Uncle Sam. What happens if Michael Saylor gets liquidated? Nothing. Nothing. They've been building a giant container for such amounts of Bitcoin. That's why the Orange Man signed the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, which is why a year later, it's under attack. Anything that makes human beings free is under attack. You know, and I don't know, honestly, that you can trust any one particular leader. I think some leaders have patriotic intentions, but what masters do they serve? Okay, Bitcoin serves no master. Crypto serves no master. They can attack us. They can run us out of town. They can make us hide under our Darth Vader light. I don't care what they do. We're not going anywhere. They can take it to 58. They can take it to 38. They can take it to 28. I don't think that's necessary. I think you will see massive macro hedge funds start buying these things. In other words, you will have a market clearing price in Bitcoin between now and the solar eclipse. Somewhere in here, they'll find the market clearing price where all the hedgers and the tourists puke, and that crypto winds up in the hands of guys who are never going to sell, just like the guys who bought gold and sat on it for 15 years. You have to remember, everyone's acting like gold sprouted out of the ground yesterday and went up only. It's, you know, it hasn't been around for all this time. It hasn't been dead for 10 years. 10 years, more than that. 15 years, gold and silver were dead after an initial rally. You know, this is what we got to put up with. You know, we have to put up with indignity. And they put up with a lot of indignity and gold and silver. And like I said, and I'm going to close on this note, if you're going to make money in crypto, you're going to earn it. You're going to earn it because you're going to have to put up with stuff like today, because it's really hard. It's really hard to be a hodler, and it's really hard to figure out like where the exact low is going to be on the exact day. We're trying to help our people with timing. You know, I didn't get to the chopper, but I was like, don't touch it until after the eclipse. So the good news is when this is over, you're going to have bargain basement prices, not just for crypto, but for freedom. And let these ETF tourists leave. Because you know what? An epilogue, I don't think BlackRock or any of these players have the amount of Bitcoin that they say they do to back up the assets under management in the Bitcoin ETFs. I think they still have to buy. Like, I know that selling in the Bitcoin ETF is going to create selling in Bitcoin, obviously. But there's no exact number that I'm aware of where someone says, oh yeah, we have this much in the Bitcoin ETF under management and this much Bitcoin backing it. It's not one for one. It's not proof of reserves. It's not published. Of course, they have Bitcoin at Coinbase. Of course they do. But I think the people who own the Bitcoin ETFs, who manage them, are also hoovering up Bitcoin at these kind of prices on these kind of days, right? Like if the Chinese come in for one more shot below the belt tonight, they're probably going to run into BlackRock and any of these other really big players who missed it at 126, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is Christmas." Because what happens if the range really is 40 or what if it is 58K to 250K? Like if the number for 2026 on the downside is nuts, what happens if you're opening up 2027 at some ungodly price after a fall final dip? That's the way Druckenmiller and all these other guys will think of it. That is the market update for the day that will live in infamy. We will see you soon.